What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Grammer with the Albuquerque Journal, and we are live from the Albuquerque Journal's offices. This is one of our meeting rooms that we are in. Sean and I are in the same room, but while I try and figure out these headsets again, because I'm getting too much background noise when I'm doing these at the games. Anyway, we are in the same room, but on headsets. So, Sean Reider, colleague, football writer for the Journal, is here with us. We have a lot to cover on Lobo Sports, and I think we're going to kick things off with football. We'll stick with football at first. We definitely need your questions, your comments, all that good stuff, and a lot going on, obviously, in UNM athletics. Tomorrow, a new athletic director formally being introduced. His first day on the job was actually yesterday, but football season wrapped up this past season. Basketball season is underway. First month of the season is in the books. The Lobos had a 1-1 showing at the Acrisure Classic last week in Palm Desert, not Palm Springs technically, but Palm Desert, California, and went 2-2 against power conference teams in the non-conference in November. Traveled more than any Lobo team has ever traveled flying-wise, more miles flown. There was 1 month in November that they traveled more, but that included one bus ride down to Las Cruces that put them over the miles. I digress. Lobo football, Sean, first of all, how you doing?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing all right, man. It's a busy time for both of us. For those that don't know, once the football season wraps up, it does not mean the end of or a slow time even for the football writer. It means you better start tracking that portal. You better start doing the wrap-up stuff. You better start checking the NIL world, and you better start, unfortunately, chasing down some rumors and stuff like that. So Bronco Mendenhall had a press conference today, kind of a season wrap-up press conference. Bronco Mendenhall's name has been certainly in the rumor mill, I think is the safe way to put it. And what happened at the press conference today with Bronco Mendenhall, and you can take it anywhere you want. We are certainly going to address the Utah State elephant in the room, and you can get that from the front, or you can ease into that and talk about the other stuff he covered. Where do you want to start with your football wrap-up?
Let's start with the front. It was a year-end kind of end-of-season wrap-up press conference from Bronco today. And at one point during the press conference, he was asked, hey, there's been reports from Deseret News, which is in Utah, footballscoop.com, kind of linking you to the Utah State position. And he didn't really answer the question there. He kind of just said, I've been doing this 15 years, and every year I think I've been kind of, looped into, gotten some interest in some form or fashion. And December is always the worst part of the year for, coaching families and stuff like that. And there's always uncertainty and yada, yada. And he didn't really answer the question about the Utah State deal, if he had been contacted, if he had interviewed, anything of that nature. At the end of the press conference, I circled back. To be clear, this is a question I kind of started with. Have you been contacted? Have you been approached by Utah State? He said, I have only been speculated to have been contacted by Utah State. I asked him to be interviewed, and he said, I have not been approached or interviewed. That was kind of the big question we wanted to get out of today's press conference, at least in my eyes. It was actually a really good press conference in the sense of a lot of talk about, kind of roster building going forward, how much the impending NCAA roster caps will end up affecting UNM. To kind of jump to that point, not a whole lot. We'll see what happens, how that actually plays out, and how he wants to execute that in terms of walk-ons and scholarship players and all that.
Hold on 1 second, Sean. I'm being told that the mic, your mic isn't going, even though I have it turned up to 10. And I hear you. Yeah, I hear you a lot here. I'm going to switch you to another port here, and we'll see if that works. So you Lobo fans listening and watching and all that good stuff, you can bear with me while I switch some cords around here, and we'll see if this one works a little better. Sean, take over where you were, and let's see if this mic works any better.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine. I don't know why it's not coming through, but I can hear you.
Can anybody in the comments, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? All right, so I'm getting a message from the person who told me that it was hard to hear you initially. I am asking if it's better, and I'm getting the ... going. It's fine.
It's fine.
Okay, have at it.
Let me take over again. Yeah, so to kind of recap, the one question I kind of wanted to get answered today in Bronco Mendenhall's end-of-year press conference was in relation to the Utah State vacancy. somebody in the press conference, another reporter asked a question. Hey, there's been, the Deseret News and footballscoop.com, they put out that you've been linked to the job. If you say anything, and he didn't really answer the question. He said, I've been doing this 18 years, and every year I've been kind of linked to some job or the other, or gotten interest in some form or fashion, and December is always the worst month of the year for coaching families, football families, and the like, because of, the job changes, the uncertainty, and all that. But he didn't actually answer the question of whether or not he had been contacted by Utah State, or approached, or interviewed, or any form of fashion. End of the press conference, I circled back to that. I asked, to be clear, have you been approached by Utah State? He said, I've only been speculated to have been contacted by Utah State. And I asked him if he had interviewed. He said, I have not interviewed for the job. Two ways to look at it, right? I think we all have some form of memory of some form of memory is a weird term phrase. Was it 2006? Nick Saban's coaching the Dolphins, and he kind of gets out there and he comes out. He's like, I am not going to be the head coach at Alabama. You can quit asking me. It's not going to happen. And then a month later, he was the head coach at Alabama. Different pros to college and that jump, a different time frame too. At the same time, it ended up happening, even if he said that. Bronco didn't say today, I am not taking the job and all that too. And you could probably pin some of that on the line of questioning I adopted. I probably could have thrown another question, are you committed to UNM and the like as well? And then you could also just take it as Bronco, he has not interviewed. And I think nobody's reported anywhere from what I'm aware of. If anybody's seen the report saying that Bronco Mendenhall has interviewed for the Utah State gig, please send it my way, because I just haven't seen it. The only real, I want to be careful with my words here. The only kind of big report that I saw was Pete Nakos reporting it for on3.com. Beyond that, it seems like it's just been a lot of rumor and all that as well. And that's not to discredit Utah State insiders or anything like that too. Geoff, you need to stop typing. Come on, man.
So can you hear me now? Yeah, I am done typing.
But yeah, that was the big question. We have that response. It's, put it on Twitter and all that too. And that is kind of where we are. We honestly, I think I mentioned this. I don't remember if I mentioned this just now or when I was talking earlier. A lot of really good stuff from Bronco in terms of the kind of roster approach and what they want to do, where they want to get better. To kind of get into that a little bit, like you said clearly, like we need more players on defense. We need to up the level there. Wasn't up to our standard. Said in the team meeting that they had yesterday, I think 1:30 on Monday, that there was kind of a lack of finality in the sense that the season is over, but they felt it was going to keep going. They were going to make that bowl, and he said that's kind of a sign of the rebuild is working. When you have unbroken progress like that too, and you kind of want to build on that as well. But yeah, that's kind of a lot of the takeaways. We'll have multiple stories at today's press conference, and be able to explain them in the stories far better than I am right now.
I'm still trying to figure out mic issues. It sounds like you guys can all hear me, and it sounds like some of you are saying maybe I'm picking up Sean through this mic. Again, I am certainly not the AV guy. We got Willie Fram from Scottsdale. I'll go ahead and entertain this because I think I know who this is, and it's a good friend who certainly is obsessive with me on social media and has followed me for years. And I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're here following me now on YouTube and these live shows. And I'm sure I will be hearing from you 10 times again in DMs and on this show plenty. So glad you're here following me now onto a new avenue and a new platform. The typing is super loud. I will not type anymore. I promise you. No more typing. The bottom line on the Bronco Mendenhall stuff is this. Coaches, I'm not trying to burst anybody's bubble here, but coaches can play around and dance around with answers on stuff a lot on whether or not they interviewed. Did he interview? He says no. He has not interviewed with Utah State. He said that today. Mm-hmm. Does that mean he hasn't talked with Utah State or his representation hasn't talked with Utah State? Obviously not. But as of today, he talked about an offseason ahead for Lobo football. He talked about plans for improving this program. And as of today, Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, Bronco Mendenhall's the UNM Lobo coach, and said today he has no plans as of right now to change that. Moving forward, what the big question a lot of people have, and obviously you're well aware and have touched on, is the NIL question and the Devin Dampier question and the other player question and stuff like that. Will football, as D. Vander's asking here, will football be allocated more NIL with the recent sight of potential, the recent sight of potential with Bronco? And then a follow-up from D. Vander as well. Do we have enough to keep Dampier? I'll say this real quick before I hand it over to you to sort of answer that. The NIL money right now isn't sort of collected and then divvied up in a way where 505 Sports Venture is saying, we're not allocating this to football on our decision and this to basketball necessarily. Usually the donor, now that's not entirely true. Let me back up. The people who are like $20 a month donors, their money just goes into a big pool and it can be allocated however. But the big money we're talking about, if somebody wants to donate, let's just say somebody says, I have $100,000 I want to give you if Devin Dampier stays. And you guys find a way to get that to Devin, that goes to Devin. It's not then decided on. Most of this NIL money is still given with a specific team in mind, sometimes a specific player in mind. And I do think that's what's been going on right now with Devin Dampier. What those numbers are and stuff like that's another question. But where do we stand as following what UNM is doing with NIL money and kind of where they're at in terms of maybe keeping Devin?
From my impression, can't share a ton. But look, if you want to go off like the ideas of what maybe the market rate for a dynamic starting quarterback and all that is too, I would probably say that UNM does have enough to keep Dampier. I don't know if money will end up being the issue in the end, and I'm not saying that there's any issues that I've picked up on or anything like that too. But from my impression, like the money is definitely there, that they have enough for sure. And I think we've touched on this in other shows. UNM is a pretty robust collective, actually. In terms of the Dampier thing, it is just kind of a, it's an unanswered. It will be a question that will be answered down the road in the sense of if he stays or if he goes. Is it a matter of, is he content at UNM, and is he, he's going to be making good money? Is he content at UNM? Does he, or does he still kind of dream of that P4 shot or anything like that, proving himself on a higher level? That's kind of the way I look at it. From my impression, the money is definitely there. But that is just kind of the one last question. And I know that, those talks are kind of going down about now. And I would expect an answer on his status, kind of firm and clear relatively soon. But yeah, there's another comment.
Which one are you at?
Timothy Fuller, we didn't have enough.
Yeah, so
I think
Tim Fuller's first comment is, Sean, any idea what the UNM NIL collective budget is? It's ever changing. It's fluid.
Yeah.
I will say that Lobo Batman's basketball this year, the goal was to get to 2 million, and they were probably going to get to 2 million. And football was about half that, less than half that, entering the season. It will be, as of right now, if Devin Dampier stays, I can tell you it's going to be
bigger.
It's much bigger going into next year. But a lot of it has to do with Devin Dampier and whether or not he's going to stay. The next question Timothy Fuller has is, do you have any thoughts on the MSU collapse? Could MSU go after Dampier?
Man. God, that was just a miserable game on Saturday. What an awful watch. Yeah, look, I don't know. I still believe in John Smith, but the recruiting trail stuff has not been great. I think they're 17th in the Big Ten. Purdue's the only one below. So I don't know. It's kind of tough. I'm curious what they do in the portal. It really felt like that Iowa game could have been a turning point, and that U of M game to me just took the steam out. Could MSU go after Dampier over Childs? I don't see John Smith doing that, but that would be kind of a neat wrinkle for me.
Another one from Tim, kind of covering the same stuff. Patino's likely to leave before Bronco. Okay, could be. Let's see here. We didn't have enough to say or for JT Toppin. That is true, but I will.
It feels like different situations.
It's very different situations. First of all, JT Toppin had a very significant offer from UNM to stay. He got more than $1 million to go to Texas Tech. Did UNM have $1 million to give him? No. So that is true. UNM did not have over $1 million to give JT Toppin. So yeah. If we're talking players getting over $1 million and wanting over $1 million, it is going to be very hard for UNM to compete with that. That is the truth. When do we start finding stuff out, Sean? When do we know? What is the transfer portal window? When do we find out who is then going to, not only the Devin Dampier domino needs to fall, but then like the reaction to that? When do we start finding out who is actually going to be a Lobo going into next season, or at least into spring ball?
So it feels like a lot of things are kind of in play, are connected to the Devin thing, I should say, right? There's a lot of elements, and I think that's kind of playing out in terms of both guys staying and also like NIL payments as well, too. The portal does open on Monday, the 9th. But I mean, if you're on Twitter, if you're watching the show and all that too, like you've definitely seen, people have already put their names in the portal, big names, Mikey Keene from Fresno State, one of them, not so big names, Chubba Purdy from Nevada as well. Only one UNM player has put has announced their intention, I should say, to enter the portal when it does open up on Monday after the season. That is Jamarcus Bailey. He played in 5 games this year, mostly as an extra blocker, if I remember correctly. And the other 2 were Juwan Singletary and Tavian Combs. Those were in-season entries, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, look, the news honestly could come at any time. In terms of the Devin stuff, I would say I'm expecting something sooner rather than later. I don't think it's going to be I have a hard time seeing that news coming out like a week from now or something like that.
I think it's safe to say that there will be, if there hasn't already been some contact, some discussions about here's what we can offer for you to stay. They're happening this week. I mean, the season just ended Saturday.
It definitely happens.
The conversations now, the next step is the conversations happen right now, and then he has some time to think about it. Does he want to give a quick decision, which would help? If he's staying, it would certainly help the team because there are teammates and coaches and other recruits in the portal that might make their decision based on whether or not he is or isn't here. And I think with that said, if he can make his decision quicker, that would be wonderful. So I do think that we'll probably, first of all, the discussions are happening this week. We kind of know that. I think a decision will probably happen by the end of the week.
I think so too.
If a decision hasn't already been made, maybe they're waiting for one last sort of offer. What can you offer me? I've already made up my mind here. I'm doing this or this. Let's see what the final push is from whoever, right? But I think that's where we kind of stand with all that. Anything else from today's presser on football? Actually, let's talk about all conference real quick. Mountain West came out with their all conference awards today. What news can you bring from that, Sean?
Yeah, just talking about him. Devin Dampier, the first UNM quarterback in program history to get all Mountain West, first team all Mountain West honors as a quarterback. I think, Graham Lee got all WAC honors at some point. I think that's what I thought I saw in the release. But obviously, I mean, that's huge. It's well deserved. Geoff and I all year kind of on these shows, we kind of bicker back and forth about if he was the best quarterback in the league or the most dynamic quarterback in the league. And I think the kind of recent run, although Hawaii wasn't his most sterling performance, the recent run, particularly the Washington State, that game in particular, that kind of solidified it for me. I voted for Devin as first team All Mountain West quarterback. Also, Baraka Beckett, offensive lineman, also made on the first team, very well deserved there too. Baraka is probably the most consistent offensive lineman on the team, in my opinion. He's really darn good on the offensive line. That, frankly, I won't say I had major question marks entering the season, but I mean, it was a group of guys that never played together. You just didn't know how that was going to go, and they performed. Agnello, another offensive lineman, kind of a true line for them. And he was higher up on my voting. They never played center before this year. And all of a sudden, with Juwan Singletary and before the Montana State game, right over the center, he was really good. I don't think he had a bad snap all year. This last game against Hawaii, and we were right tackle because Walter Namba was out. And Eli Sanders, running back, was also over 1,000 yards. I don't remember his exact. It was 19. UNM feedback really got into an excellent group, throughout the course of the season. UNM was kind of working different packages. Of Sanders and Corey Rogers and David Jacobs. David Jacobs suffers with eventually injury, and Corey Rogers a little bit. Sanders did a hell of a job. 200 yards rushing against Wyoming. Really kind of solidified himself as the lead back in a room that I don't know if they need a lead back, but definitely ended up getting one. Honorable mention, tight end Trace Ruckler. Noah Venture, Trace Ruckler, Christian Ellis. Oh no, Sanders was honorable mention, not second team. My bad.
That is your bad.
Sorry, everybody. And Bryce Santana.
How did all that coincide with what Lobos you voted for?
So I had Devin first team. I had second team. I was kind of concerned that he wasn't going to get on, but he did a good enough job to get on there. I had Eli second team as well. I had Christian Ellis was going to be an honorable mention. And I had, actually, I think that's it. I don't have my ballot in front of me, but those were the ones that I kind of went after.
All right, got another football question here. We'll get back to from earlier. Lobo Fish, what's up, Lobo fans? Sean, what is up with the penalty being reviewed in Hawaii regarding the pick play? How did the UH coach get the referee to review that and overturn a penalty? I don't know what this is even about because I was doing some other things.
That was a weird one, and the broadcast even noted that it was because if you are the offense, it's a rub. If it's defense, it's a pick. And that one was kind of confusing, and frankly, I didn't ask about it after the game. I definitely should have, to be honest with you. But that was a weird in the sense that I just don't know how you actually see that. So it's a good point, Lobo Fish. That game, I don't really go after officials a whole lot. I've kind of made it a point not to. I don't think it's always my place to do. I feel like that one, I think it was third or fourth quarter. I think it was fourth quarter, that kind of catch that didn't get overturned. That was a weird call, in my opinion. I played right before that, the alley had a slide, not being the first. I thought that was a weird one as well, too. Or one or two plays before that. And then some of the spots in general. I wasn't in Hawaii, so I didn't see it perfectly. I was watching the game on my freaking phone. But at the same time, some interesting work by the officials.
Got another one here, kind of related to the Hawaii game in a way. Why do most college ADs go on all football road trips? I can tell you, football is the biggest business in college athletics. It's the biggest part of their job to keep those boosters that like going to college football games happy, or at least be around them. Continue the business of running an athletic department and around the football program primarily. That's why they go. They charter, so it's not like they're just trying to get their assigned seating on Delta American or Group A seating with Southwest. All football games are chartered because of all the equipment and the number of people that are going. So it's easier for ADs to go, and they get back to work certainly a lot sooner as well. But that's the easy answer there, Desert Lobo, is they go because that is where the business happens at these football games. That is where ADs talk to ADs, it's where boosters talk to ADs. Where you maybe sometimes see TV execs and stuff like that, conference commissioners, and that is why all that happens. It's related in that Timothy Fuller's asking, not this one, sorry, that was back to your Michigan State thing. Timothy Fuller from earlier on YouTube says, why have we not had a press conference with the new AD? When do we get to hear from him? The answer to that is tomorrow morning, Wednesday morning, first day on the job. Technically, per contract, was December 1st. That was a Sunday, so his first day on the job was really yesterday. He got some passwords, maybe got some keys to his office, maybe a parking pass. I don't know. That was yesterday. Today he's probably meeting some people. How are you guys doing? This and that. I'm sure he was presented with some nice little stories and things going on around the athletic department. And tomorrow morning he will formally be introduced. And Fernando Lobo, for those that don't know, is the new athletic director at UNM. He is now in day 1.5. I guess he's on the second half of day 2. So he's on the back end of he's almost completing his second day on the job, and he will formally be introduced tomorrow at UNM at the pit. And the club level upstairs is when he will be introduced. What do we got next here before we move over to some basketball stuff? We got a question here on Donnie and NIL. What does Donnie get? I don't know exactly what Donnie gets. I just know through secondhand sources and stuff like that what some of these numbers might be. Nothing I would report without their confirming the number. I do know that I've been able to confirm the number JT got to leave, and I know that number was not matched here. That is correct, but I do know that the number that was being offered here was pretty significant. Um, Another AD question, I suppose. What does Lovo do to and attract? It says attack, but attract talent to you, and are there other levers for an AD besides money?
Good question.
Yeah, there are other things you can do certainly to attract certain candidates for coaching and for other administration jobs. Here's the tricky part at a place like New Mexico. One of the things you can do to attract really good talent and motivated workers is to give them a platform to display their talents to go on to get the next job. Now, if you're trying to retain that talent, maybe you don't want the world to see how good the job they're doing. But one of the not just he's the coach here, but one of Rick Pitino's famous sort of philosophies in coaching is he doesn't want a staff of assistant coaches. He wants a staff of future head coaches. And if you look through the years, some of the head coaches that have come from the Rick Pitino coaching tree, Mick Cronin, down in New Mexico State, Marvin Menzies was a Rick Pitino assistant. Reggie Theus was a Rick Pitino assistant. Obviously, Richard Pitino was a Rick Pitino assistant. All the assistants that have worked through the years for Rick Pitino were hired with the understanding that they're going to work their ass off. They were going to work tons of hours. They were gonna get on-job training to become a head coach. And some people take that philosophy. So there's not retention in mind when you hire people with that philosophy. Maybe that's something we can ask tomorrow with the new athletic director what his philosophy is on that. Remember, he's 36 years old. He's not exactly a what do we do to retain him kind of position himself. He wasn't going to stick around at Texas forever. He wanted to move on to become an athletic director, and retaining talent is an important part of all this. Money is a huge part of all this, and facilities and all that kind of stuff. But I would say that it kind of comes down to philosophy. Sometimes just because you're not retaining talent isn't because you can't retain it. It's because you're hiring people that don't want to be retained. They want to move on to that next job. And if you're using UNM for that, that's not. People view stepping stone and use that ladder kind of term as so derogatory sometimes. Nobody ever has been hired for a better job after doing a horrible job at the place they're at. So if they do a really good job and get hired away, sometimes those are just the breaks, but it usually comes with success at what they did. So that's my answer is I think do to retain people and all that are some of the perks like I suppose benefits like retirement and that kind of stuff. But money really is the main thing, unfortunately, and experience sort of makes it more attractive. So that's where we're at with that. But yeah, we're gonna maybe hear a little bit more tomorrow from the athletic director, and we'll see. Um, what do we got here? We got Adam. Thanks for joining us, moving some furniture, and wanted to pop in. Thank you guys for all the coverage. Carlos, what's this stuff about a trophy for the UNM NMSP game? That's a very good question.
Do you have anything to share about that?
I will have more to share about it probably Thursday. But yes, there's going to be a trophy, and there should be already. But there's going to be a trophy for Lobo Aggie rivalry basketball game. Some students, some wonderful students at both universities have put together, paid their own money to make this happen, and hopefully both schools buy in and kind of take it from there and take it on a little bit. But the student sections of each school are working together in a rivalry, especially on the basketball side. But well, I shouldn't say football's got pretty. The football and basketball rivalry between UNM and NMSU in recent years has gone beyond rivalry. It's just gotten to be like not even fun to follow because it's just not only just going at each other like rivals do, but making everything so ugly and nasty, and turn every little thing into, oh, see, that's what they do down there, or oh, that's what they do up there. And no, not everything has to be that way, and it's just not even. It's so awesome to put up with the fans that are doing that, and the schools that are doing it too. And frankly, I'm glad to see that there are some adults in the room that happen to come in the form of students that are trying to work together on something like that, because the adults in the room from the school perspective haven't always done that. And that's been pretty unfortunate. He likes pointing that out because a lot of the fans on each side say their side is without any blame, and it's that other side that's the problem. The other fan base says the exact same just about their fan or about their administration and all that. I'll tell you the truth. Neither school has done a very good job, and I'm talking about the adults in the room. Neither school has done a very good job about making this rivalry one that could be a healthy rivalry. They just haven't. And if you want to blame one school or the other, and if you want to call me a hater or a homer for saying both schools are to blame, have at it. This is something that both schools need some adults in the room, and I'm glad that the student section are doing that and coming up with a trophy to do so.
I'll add something. I think on a less complicated note, anything is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of kind of manufactured rivalry trophies and stuff like that have come from schools. And I think anything's pretty neat.
It has a chance to kind of to live a little bit longer sometimes too, because students in their whatever little window, some of us go to school for 7 years, we're doctors. Some of us in that little 4-year window, though, like students like the passion and intensity of college games and rivalries, right? I think some of them are more likely to carry on a tradition like this if you really it's born from the students and it's a student-led thing. I think that has a chance. So I'm glad that Carlos, by the way, it is Carlos, and a student at NMSU, who I'll get his name real quick here, but while I'm talking about it, but I'm glad that they sort of spearheaded this and made sure that this Saturday, the NMSU UNM basketball game will kind of get a start with that. Joseph Settle is the New Mexico State. Carlos Tenorio is the guys kind of behind this, and good on you guys. I will be talking with both a little bit more in the coming days for this weekend's rivalry basketball game to get.
Did you had anything that leave a lasting legacy? I don't know if I did. I don't think I did.
No, I mean, look,
I had a couple cases of hands.
So in my latter part of my, I was the editor of the paper, did some stuff like that. But like when I was working with the paper, and I was just a drunken college kid going to sections and yelling obscenities at everybody. I was probably nothing that I would call legacy, lasting legacy kind of stuff. I was just, and much like I am now, but in a much different way. I'm a professional idiot now. I've moved on from I've upgraded from just a regular idiot to a professional idiot now.
Yeah, just I think it's really neat.
Quick here from Lobo Fish, Geoff and Sean. Will the Mountain West Conference help Hawaii with televising more games? I would watch whoever they're playing late nights, just not on that. Yeah, the special platform that was Google, Lobos. I don't know the answer to that. When they were added as full members, I will say that there is a requirement for full members in the Mountain West to have all the capabilities to all their sports broadcasts, not all the sports, volleyball, women's basketball, men's basketball, and football. If they're not picked up by TV, all 4 of those sports have to have the capability to run on the Mountain West network. With the Hawaii situation, there's a possibility that wasn't treated the same because they were always treated a little differently anyway, being the football only. I would assume it's a good question. Is the main answer is I don't know, but I would assume that they are now required to have the same the Mountain West Network sort of requirements as the other school. But we'll find out. I mean, it's a question worth asking. And yeah.
I don't know how that works.
Well, and so that's the other thing is that Hawaii is so reliant on that TV package that any parents of kids who are going to play they pay that for that subscription. So the money that Hawaii is making and that TV network is making with that already has to be recouped in some way for Hawaii to like the deal, right? So I don't know. That's a good question. We'll have to get an answer to those questions for you. Let's see. One quick one back on football, and then we'll get into some of this basketball stuff going on. Jimmy H, as long as Bronco stays, Devin stays. There's a little something to that, but certainly not 100% true.
I think there is something to that, and I think it's one thing that we haven't really talked. We have talked about it, but yes, like Devin has gone on the record and said, like, I do feel like I'm playing like really good football right now, and a lot of that is the way that offensive coordinator Jason used to. So if Beck were to leave, would anything happen there? Who's to say? Have you got any wind of anything like that possibly? But Beck is a Bronco guy at the same time. So yeah, I bet you $5. Beck staying is bigger. I think it's absolutely huge. Not only to keep Devin, but also to keep Beck. I haven't heard much of anything about Beck being moved or Beck being offered anything. At the same time, if it keeps up the way it is, definitely going to get some serious looks. Because he is, this is a really good offense this year. It's a unique offense, and I think the most important part, they use the personnel around them.
Geoff blaming UNMSU for the rivalry. I am. That is true. I am blaming UNMSU all of the problems in the world, not just in the rivalry. Let's go. Let's move on to some basketball stuff. We
one more.
Yeah. Got it. Where are we at here? Because these come up in different order. We're talking about the Utah.
Yes, the Utah State message board is later this week. I do not look at the Utah State message board. I am sorry, guys. I don't know. Maybe. I think that's the thing today, right? Like, I had Utah State fans tweeting at me and all this right now. We asked the question. That was the answer that he gave. Frankly, like, for UNM fans watching this, I would not feel, I wouldn't, fully, stop worrying. I don't know how to phrase this correctly about the Utah State vacancy and all that too. So they have hired their coach and announced it formally and done that too. But that was the answer we got today, and that's pretty much it. So we'll see if the situation evolves anywhere beyond what it is today, or if it doesn't.
I do see some of the exchanges you're having on social media. I guess they showed that initial question and then his non-answer.
And I went back. I feel that he answered the question, so I went back and I asked him.
Look, again, coaches have no obligation, I guess. Well, the story could be over if everybody at play, including Utah State, including Bronco, wanted to make it unequivocally clear that this is not going to happen. Bronco, I thought, did that for the most part today. Until things are totally done, they're not totally done, and all we can do is ask the questions and find out from other sources, and there are no other sources that are indicating to us other than Utah State fans saying it. So there really hasn't been there hasn't been an announcement from Utah State. There hasn't been agents saying yes, this has happened. We have Bronco at his word 2, 3. Let's see, it was 11:30. So it was about 4 hours ago today, saying he has spoken with Utah State about the job and is not interviewed for the job.
Sure.
Right.
Absolutely. One person, not to keep dragging on this too, we need to get into basketball. One person did when I tweeted out initially, didn't need to know, his representatives could have just talking to him and all that. Too. That is definitely the process too. But I think I was not going to go in there and ask him as your representative. The question there was, have you talked? And that was kind of the way. So let's get into some hoops.
Let's get into some hoops here. There was a press conference earlier today with Richard Pitino, a scheduled one because they have a basketball game tomorrow night. They played 2 games last week after Classic in Palm Springs. It was actually presented by Visit Palm Springs. It was technically in Palm Desert, California. And, they went 1-1, almost beat State, let it lead away from Valley first from a double-digit deficit in the first half. Then took a 9-point lead, let that slip away. Back-to-back 3-pointers from Arizona State late in the game, kind of, in my mind. They lose by 3 to a really good Arizona State team. And then the second game they play USC. Eric Musselman's coach USC, and beat them. Really, I used the word bump and kind of upset some people because they ended up the final score was only a 10-point margin, but they were up by 20 with 5 minutes to go, and Pitino emptied the bench and put his deep reserves in. That 20-point lead in a matter of 3 minutes got down to 8, I think it was, and then they ended up winning by 10. But it was a never in doubt 20-point lead much of the second half, 15 to 20 kind of thing, and it really wasn't close. So it was a Big Ten victory. They also beat UCLA. So they have wins over Big Ten teams, as weird as that is, Southern California and UCLA, but they do. So their November was probably successful in that they did get 2 Big Ten wins and traveled quite a bit. They now play a weird, because the Mountain West Conference is going to a 20-game schedule this year. They now play a weirdly placed, scheduled, timed Mountain West game tomorrow night, and then they wait 3 weeks before they play the rest of them. Start December 28th, I think, the rest of their league schedule. So because they're adding 2 Mountain West teams, some teams, there's going to be 6 teams tomorrow night, 3 games, 6 teams in one of the conference games early, and then get through finals and all that kind of stuff, and start league play after Christmas. And that's where we're at with the Lobos right now. They play San Jose State, coached by Tim Miles, who again, was a finalist for this job. Richard Pitino got the job. And that game will be interesting. San Jose State's on 3-game win streak, seems to have sort of corrected their early season. Are playing much better, but the Lobos should win, especially at home. Another topic that was addressed a little bit at the press conference earlier today, and you can tell it's a big topic when TV asks their news reporters, not their sports reporters. They don't let the sports reporters handle stories like this. They send in news reporters and extra camera people to ask the questions about a news story, which is what some TV stations did report last night. We're certainly aware of it. We are reporting on some stuff today, and here's where we are. A walk-on player who had shoulder surgery earlier this month. I can tell you, everyone seems to know who it is. I suppose I'll bite my tongue now just because I haven't talked to my editors about whether or not to name him, but I can tell you there are 3 walk-ons on the team. 2 of them are out with shoulder injuries, and you can narrow it down to 1 of 2, I suppose. But I'll talk about it. We're going to find out if we can name him. They're flying out to Palm Springs last week. The allegation is one of the walk-on players and one of the scholarship players. Why it's a walk-on and a scholarship player has been so widely reported, I frankly don't know. It doesn't matter. They're 2 teammates and have been for 2 years. They got in a fight, some horseplay, some messing around, which happens quite a bit with a bunch of 20-year-old teammates that are around each other pretty much year-round, but certainly for 5 or 6 months, live in the same apartments, practice every day, travel, planes, all that kind of stuff together. And it got to the point where one punched the other, and I think in an attempt, not an attempt, let me backtrack on that, in a response that was up to the family's expectations or satisfaction. Frankly, they didn't feel that the local coaching staff did enough on behalf of their son, called some TV stations, yet got an attorney involved. As of this afternoon, UNM does not have a report on this. There's not a police report. There is not a report filed with the dean of students. There's no report filed or complaint of any kind filed with the president's office. There is not a report or complaint filed of any kind with the Title IX office. There has been nothing filed per se. There's only been calls to TV station that this happened. UNM's not denying that there was something happened. UNM and Richard Pitino today acknowledged that discipline is something we handle internally. I'm not going to talk about. UNM, due to federal student privacy issues, isn't going to talk about specific students anyway, and can't because it was federal law. And so they're not saying a whole lot other than standard. We're looking into it and investigating it. I can tell you that standard statement that the university spokesperson put out last night, almost cut and paste sort of response to a question about, hey, what are you guys doing about this? When they're saying we'll look into it, we'll investigate it, the statement that is out there is what they they would say to anything because there is not a formal complaint or a formal report as of I think when was it? You heard me on the office talking was it 2 hours ago, an hour and a half ago? As of an hour and a half ago, there has not been a formal complaint or anything that's been filed. So the university doesn't exactly know for sure what it is investigating. Now, the team was all on the plane, and there were tons of witnesses. This happened last Tuesday on the way to California. You can talk to all the players and all that kind of stuff, and some of that stuff is going. Uh, the player alleged to have punch or a shove in one hand, one person's closed fist punch is another person's handed slap kind of thing. Some of that's being sorted through right now. Um, that person played in both groups and was not suspended. And I asked Patino today, is anybody not available for the game tomorrow night? And he said he wouldn't answer because it's related. The question was related to this, and he's just not getting into specifics right now. He answered that 10 different times during the press conference. Some of the news report questions he did. Lobo fans are now they're so happy after the win, and now they're disgruntled by all this. I don't know that that's true because right now all that's out there is a very one-sided story. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. I want everybody to understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm saying right now one side of the story out, and it's not even a complaint filed anywhere about this, so I can't get more details. No journalist can get a whole lot more details right now than a family member of one of the players saying this happened without a report filed anywhere. So that's where we're at. There have been no public suspensions. There has been no public discipline. There are allegations that this player who was either punched or shoved or whatever, I'm in the hospital last week. A lot of people at UNM, they did not know that until news broke yesterday with some TV stations, and that is at least what I'm being told. So again, I'm not carrying anybody's water here. I'm not trying to take any sides here. I'm telling you what I know, and I'm told that the hospital part of it, nobody at UNM knew about, so it wasn't related to me. This player who is alleging this happened to him left the team last Tuesday when they got to California. He left and went home with his family back to Albuquerque, is my understanding. So that's where we're at. There will be a story that I write later today about all this, pretty much what I just said. And it is partly that UNM's looking into this, but there's not been any formal ask or formal complaint filed. The lawyer has said this is what happened, but hasn't yet publicly, and I hope to talk with them this afternoon, hasn't yet publicly said this is what we're doing. Are they filing a lawsuit? Are they just wanting an apology? Are they just wanting their suspension? Are they just wanting X? I don't know. Nothing has actually been filed with the university or any authorities. No police department has a case as of right now. So that's where we're at. That's why I didn't report anything last night. There's still some questions to be answered. Not saying that it isn't an incident that happened. I'm just saying I don't have enough to report on it yet. And everything I just told you is where I'm at with it. Let me get a couple questions related to that here. Let's see here. I got to go back and find some of these. Did I delete them? Where are we at here? When are we hearing from the new AD? We got that already. All right. We got Jimmy H saying, Geoff, when do we hear about your sleuthing on the alleged plane incident? On you for such things. I'm telling you, I was in California last week. Nobody said a word about it to me, so it wasn't something that was on the tip of anyone's tongue or top of mind for anybody. I talked with family members last week in California, parents of players. Nobody said anything about it to me. I thought the team was having a really good time. I didn't know about any of this. Nobody from the player's family or the player himself have told me any of this. They have contacted TV stations, but have not contacted me. I know that's also true for another non-TV reporter who I spoke with today. And we in the print world, I guess, have not been worthy of being told about this yet. We have been given any calls or information from the family about this, but all 3 TV stations now in Albuquerque were certainly big on this story today and last night, and big on it in the sense that today they all sent news reporters to ask questions of the Filipino today. And let's see, where are we at here? Basketball question. Desert Lobo. What MTEs UNM signed up for during the 25-26 season? Nothing is finalized yet, but I usually about now is when they kind of already start going. So let me get back to you on that Desert Lobo. I'll see if anything is done on that. I've not asked recently. Anyway, I always ask about like, hey, what do you got going for next year? And so far, nothing is exactly kind of been finalized for next year. But there we go. I have a feeling that the 20 game. This is from YouTube. Feeling that the 20 game Mountain West schedule could bite the Mountain West in the butt. It could. Like, we'll see. I don't think anyone in the Mountain West, and this includes San Diego State, was exactly using those 2 extra slots in their non-conference to schedule tough opponents. What they had to do, what the 20 game schedule ended up doing for them, was they took away 2 non-conference games. Obviously, nobody really took away from those 2 spots and said, "Oh, let's take away the tough games." The potential quad 1 or quad 2 non-conference games are still there. Now, where it could hurt is that Air Force, San Jose State, Wyoming, and Fresno State all have low computer metrics, and those 4 opponents, everybody will be playing twice now. There's no chance of skipping one of those. When it was an 18 game schedule, there was 1 team a year you didn't play at home, and 1 team a year you didn't play on the road, and you could at least avoid 1 really bad game along if you got the right teams. That's not going to happen this year, but there was never any guarantee who you'd be skipping, right? Sometimes you were skipping a good opponent. Instead of playing San Diego State twice, you would play them only once, and maybe you needed to play them twice to try and get another good win opportunity on your schedule. So the 20 game schedule we're about to find out. Patino did say today that they were all in favor of it, or the majority, not all. Brian Dutcher has never been in favor of it at San Diego State. But the coaches voted on this, and the ADs then recommended it to the board of directors, who approved it in the Mountain West Conference. And Patino said, "Yeah, it sounded like a good idea at first. And then after we approved it, we kind of thought maybe we had some second thoughts about it. Maybe we didn't want to do it." And he said all that today. He said, "But it's good. We got a 20 game schedule, and we'll ride it out and kind of see how it goes from there." So we will see. As far as this, left the team as in left the team, or just traveled back to Albuquerque separately? Traveled back to Albuquerque separately. Nobody is off the team. Nobody's left the team. Everybody's still on the team, and nobody has been suspended. Any discipline that has happened related to this incident has been kept in-house at this point. I will say I've been at practices in the summertime. I've been doing 13 seasons of Lobo coverage. I've seen fights. I've seen punches thrown. I've seen stuff like that at practices. Sean, I imagine the at least the portions of practices, the football practices that you've been at, you've seen some similar things too. We certainly see them every year in the NFL when the spring training fights happen and stuff like that. Stuff like this happens all the time, and that's what the coaching staff chalk this up to. Doesn't make it right. Well, I can understand there being some confusion as to why they get back from a road trip and are hearing things like, "Oh, the guy went to the hospital and we had a team doctor there on the plane. We had medical personnel. We weren't told anything about that." Why there's some confusion as to what escalated from horseplay or 2 teammates getting in a scuffle and a fight that nobody thought much of at the time, to now a lawyer's involved. And there is a sense of some confusion at UNM as to what about this escalated to what it is now, and I want to know too, man. I really do, but no, as of right now, nobody left the team, as far as I know. Again, the player himself and his family have not spoken with me, and I hope that changes, and we find out more to all this. So, moving on, John Cook here. You got anything you want to add to basketball? The hiring of Lobo is a signal they want to go after more funding for football program, work on University Stadium. Is that I read it, it's not a question, but in a way, the fundraising component to this, when I talked to Garnet Stokes, the fundraising component was going to be a part of this no matter what. The priority was beyond fundraising, right? It just so happens that the two priorities right now are fundraising and football. So they got a guy who has been in the realm of both, and he was at University of Texas, sitting in the room on capital projects and capital improvements and stuff like that for $500 million worth of facility improvements at Texas. But I'll say this: he's never been the lead fundraiser. He has never been the guy running the Lobo Club or the Texas version of that, or Houston, whatever other schools he's been at. He's not been Jalen Dominguez, the guy running the Lobo Club, who actually goes to donors and businesses and says and establishes those donor relationships and fundraising relationships. So that'll be somewhat new to him, but that doesn't mean he's totally naive to it either. He's not like he's not been in the world. He's been in the room when those deals got finished and he helped things get to the finish line with some big dollar donors and stuff like that. He just wasn't the primary again the Lobo Club director in that position. But yeah, fundraising and football are the priorities. If there are two priorities, and there are, those are them. And I would say if there's a third priority, a little bit lower on the list, but partly because Lobo basketball sort of run itself for so long, I would say it's that they don't want Lobo basketball to miss a step. They don't want men's basketball got back to the tournament last year for the first time in a decade, which made over $3.5 million in ticket revenue, which was more than football did here. They don't want and can't afford to have Lobo basketball take a step back. So while it isn't the priority that fundraising overall is, or football getting right in football for any potential future realignment issues, those are the two priorities. Basketball, they don't want to get in the way of either. They're just sort of let basketball kind of do its own thing, and we're not going to make it. Maybe we're going to prioritize it, but we're definitely not diminishing it in any way. So there we are. There's where we're at. There's some basketball updates. I will say this: the basketball team is playing pretty good. They're 6-2. There are 5 teams in the Mountain West that I could tell you could make a pretty good argument for the top 5 teams as to which one's the best. I think all 5 have some case to be made. That took a pretty bad home loss last night, though. But the top 5 teams in the Mountain West in basketball through the month of November, I think, are all going to be right on the cusp of looking like an NCAA tournament team. Will they have the resume for it? That's another question. But there's 5 teams that are pretty good, that are in contention for not only a Mountain West championship, but for potential bubble talk come March. And just so we're clear, those teams are San Diego State, Utah State, Utah State.
For their fan base, both of them.
Absolutely. So San Diego State, Utah State, Nevada, Boise State, which
Nevada,
was
a tough one last night.
Yeah, really bad. Really bad. I watched. They were awful. Washington State had 2 really key players out, and Nevada was an 11-point home favorite and lost by 11 on their home court. They were bad. They had everybody. And Alfred afterwards talked about, if it was that sounds better than I thought. They are a team that basically Alfred afterwards said had a horrible week of practice. They spent Thanksgiving, their tournament last Charleston Classic, which they did well in. They lost their initial game, their opening round game to Vanderbilt, but then they beat a very good VCU team, A10 favorite, and over Dayton. They were picking the preseason to win the A10 over Dayton, which looks like a really good team now, and a VCU team that is coming to the pit in 2 weeks. They beat VCU in the second round. I forget who they beat in the third round, but they got 2 really good wins for happening to go into the losers bracket. And Nevada looked really, really good. Had a high net ranking, had a high KenPom ranking, 11-point favorite last night. But they kind of sat at home through Thanksgiving and didn't have any good practice apparently. Maybe kind of resting on their high rankings and all these computer methods. And just kind of got thumped, to use the word I was using earlier about some games. And they didn't look good. Their net dropped from 36 to 60, or 36 to 56, or 33 to 56, or something like that. But there's some 20-point drops in one day after the net just debuted yesterday for the season. So the 5 teams, though, San Diego State, Utah State, Nevada, Boise State, and New Mexico are the 5 teams that I think are still very much in the hunt for looking at the best team in the Mountain West and for an NCAA tournament appearance. And there we go. 6 of those teams in the Mountain West get going tomorrow night, actually, in terms of actual first league game. Not really any marquee games. So San Diego State does play a road game, but it's at Fresno State, which is one of the bottom four teams. New Mexico hosts one of the bottom four teams in San Jose State. And
We're counting that 10 miles.
well, Tim Miles has beat the Lobos before. I can tell you that. It was interesting though. Patino talked about watching game film as you do once you get to the league play. You don't just watch game film of recent games or games of the season. You go back to last year or the year before and see what San Jose State and New Mexico did against each other for years, right? He's looking at last year's big win by the Lobos in San Jose, and Jalen House had a great game. Jamal Mashburn Jr. had a great game. J.T. Toppin had a great game. The 3 or 4 players for San Jose State had a great game. All got in the transfer portal and both at San Jose. It's a different world in terms of conference play now, where you watch the game film and you just don't see it even have the same players on the court as you did. And so that's kind of a unique part to all this now, too. And there we go. Anything else out there from any of you fans related to basketball, football, athletic, or anything?
Do you love of
Of the New Mexico State game?
Yeah.
Sure, we can.
live preview?
I can tell you right now that when it comes to
I'm now watching the second of New Mexico State. Miami Valley.
New Mexico State hoops is
No offense to New Mexico State.
so in Jason Hooten's second year, New Mexico State. I will pull up their profile right here and give you some of the numbers. They are 3-4 right now. They're on a 4-game losing streak. There are 4 losses in a row successively. Well, let me back up. They are 3-4, but only 2 of those 3 wins were against Division I teams. They did open the season with the Division II win over New Mexico Highlands. Then they beat Utah Tech and Texas A&M Corpus Christi by 1 point, 83-82. Then they lost 4 games in a row. They lost to Dayton by 21. They lost to UNLV by 7 points at UNLV in a game that was actually pretty competitive. While I don't think they were ever threatening to win the game, they were never really out of that 7, the final score 7. I think they were kind of in that range most of the game and fared well against UNLV, but did lose to UNLV, to a Mountain West school there. Lost by 12 to a Pepperdine on the neutral court last week in Phoenix, and lost to Bowling Green by 1 in another game they had a chance to win, if you ask me, on the neutral court on Saturday. And neither Pepperdine or Bowling Green are exactly rated high. I'm looking for KenPom ratings right now. One's 277, one's 267. For their, as far as they go, New Mexico State is ranked 206 in KenPom right now. And they do have a game tomorrow night against Abilene Christian, which is where Paul Weir, former New Mexico State coach, former UNM coach, now and an executive or associate athletic director at Abilene Christian. But so they play that game tomorrow night in the Pan Am, and then Saturday's game, according to KenPom's predictor, is going to be a Lobo win, 83-66. So if you're looking at a 17-point spread, the computers will tell you these two teams are not very close right now. And frankly, I would agree with that, but Hooten's still in a rebuild that I don't think people gave enough put enough weight on. It was a rebuild unlike a whole lot of other rebuilds. I'll just say that. One thing the Aggies are doing this year defensively, they're fouling like crazy. They're ranked 360th out of 364 teams in free throw rate, which is basically free throw attempts divided by field goal attempts for the other team. If you're on defense, you're on offense for your free throws and field goals. But there's only 4 teams in all of college basketball fouling at a higher rate than the Aggies. If they're going to foul that much, the Lobos are going to poor free throw shooting team, but they will gladly take any team that wants to foul and give them those free shots, and obviously get in foul trouble as well. So another thing that I don't think New Mexico State's doing very well right now, their turnover rate. They're not turning teams over. They're holding on to the ball line. They're average in terms of teams forcing them into turnovers. But they're not forcing turnovers. They are keeping teams to a low shooting percentage overall. But when you're putting them at the free throw line, it doesn't really matter. You're kind of giving back whatever you're defending in terms of effective field goal percentage. In terms of specific players, Robert Carpenter is a story that I think is a good one and doesn't get told a whole lot. He punched a guy last year in a game, and Jason Hooten came in to clean up the program and said, "I'm not putting up with stuff like that, right? I'm not doing anything like that." Robert Carpenter, after punching a Liberty player last year in a game in the Pan Am Center, and kind of made the rounds on social media, especially. Didn't play a game again the rest of the season. I talked to Richie McKay about some stuff. I talked to the coach of Liberty, and I talked to Jason Newton about this and all that kind of stuff. And they felt bad for Robert Carpenter because he never showed anything like that before, but he did it. He did not return to the team last year. They didn't give up on him. They kept him around. They didn't want him just to lose the scholarship, lose the chance to get an education. He is now arguably their best player this year and doing really well. He's a 6'7" forward, and he's a great rebounder. And he's blocking some shots as well. Christian Koch was a preseason all-conference pick as a guard, doing just fine for them as well. So I do think that the Aggies are still very much in rebuild mode, but are headed in the right direction. It's not just an Aggie talking. They got a long ways to go because I don't think people gave enough credit, or not credit, that's not the word I'm looking for, but really gave enough thought to just how much of a rebuild they really had. Yeah, the hill was steep, the climb was great, and it wasn't just about filling out a roster like some coaches do. You turn over a roster completely, and some teams still do pretty well. Yeah, that's all well and good when you're also not trying to change a whole culture around a program that just had all the stuff that happened in Mexico State, the allegations, the coaches getting fired, all the stuff that went on that we all know about. Most people here know about, so I don't need to repeat it all. But his rebuild was something that was big time. So what else we got here? Got a couple things here. Skip that. We did that. See any other questions here we need to address here?
There is food update.
Well, come on, it's Thanksgiving. Obviously, you being a young buck aren't around family for Thanksgiving.
No.
So, what did you do for Thanksgiving? Were you able to?
So
you and any friends?
Filed a couple and then went to a good friend's house. It was very fortunate to spend Thanksgiving with them. It was nice. Watched a lot of football. Watched a Lobo game there.
Nice. I was sitting in the hotel room most of the day, watching basketball and football and whatever else I could watch, and that was my Thanksgiving. When I got back on Saturday from California and was a bum most of the day, I didn't realize my wife was going to do this, and she told me, and I just totally forgot because that's what I do. I'm an idiot. She said, "Do you want?" This was last week before the trip. She said, "Do you want to do like Thanksgiving dinner before you go?" Because I was leaving last Wednesday for Palm Springs. I was like, "Nah, I don't want to before I fly out." No, I don't. But what she had asked actually was, "Do you want to do Thanksgiving before you go, or do you want to do it when you get back?" And I said, "I don't want to do it before I go." So I didn't realize then on Sunday I had no idea we were planning a Thanksgiving meal on Sunday, and sure enough, my wife took really good care of the family. We did have a traditional turkey, mashed potatoes, stuffing kind of Thanksgiving, and it wasn't until Sunday. And I felt bad because my 5-year-old daughter, I was asking her if she had a good Thanksgiving. I knew they didn't travel south to see the grandmas. There's one in Cruces, one in Albuquerque. They didn't do that this year. They just kind of hung out together, and they watched the movie. I know they went to see Moana 2, all that kind of stuff. And I asked them, I asked my daughter, I said, "Well, did you have a good Thanksgiving?" She said it was fine, but there was no food this year. And I was like, "Oh man, that's sad." And then we had it on Sunday, and I realized I just wasn't paying attention. I probably handled all that, or just maybe we could have articulated it to her better that we're just doing it on Sunday. So anyway,
glad you guys got a grammar thing.
We had a grammar Thanksgiving.
Days late,
Does the Mountain West still need to add another football school for the 2026 season? I've lost track for 2026 now. I mean, the Mountain West, they can play as is right now. Are they trying to? Yes. Do they need to? No. They don't have to add anything. They're ready to go. The Pac-12 does still have to add one football member at some point. 7 football members, 8 basketball. Washington State and Oregon State.
Yeah.
And yeah, they still need one more football member in the Pac-12, and that's where we're at with that. So, no, the Mountain West is good to go, and I think we are too. Sean, anything else you want to sign off on here before we call it a day? And
No, one thing I will add, I think in years prior, we would have talked a lot more about it, but the portal and also the unique situations going on in New Mexico in terms of State, maybe not. Devin, maybe hit the portal, maybe not. Early signing day is tomorrow. The early signing period opens tomorrow. Broncos are expecting 10 names to sign on the dotted line at that point. We will have reports on that when they all come through. We will also be launching our transfer portal tracker tonight. 3 names, none of them. But 3 names on that will be going live tonight, and we will be some more coverage in regards to what came out today. Again, I wish I was a degree. There's some really interesting things I did think about today in terms of what they want to do with the roster going forward, how they're going to approach certain changes, and
anything else here? No, I think here we go. Yes, John, there was, but you'll have to go back. We've been on for over an hour, and I did address everything I know about that. And you'll have to go back and listen when we sign off here. The main thing is there's been no suspensions. There's been no reports filed with the university or any police department, and we're still trying to figure out exactly what all is wanted out of this. If there's going to be a lawsuit, if they're just wanting an apology, if the player just wants a suspension of the player that did it, or what it is, and what UNM's coaching staff response was. Everybody witnessed it. Nobody thought anything of it, other than some force players messing around. Like players often during practices and on trips. And at some point, that escalated into at least one player thinking it was a lot more than that, and nobody, and not really liking the response he got from the others who witnessed it and saw it. So there was obviously a disconnect somewhere along the way as to how serious this was, and that's sort of what we're trying to figure out now. UNM is looking into it, and the team certainly, Richard Pitino said, handled it all internally, discipline-wise. There's been no suspensions or anything like that. I was there in California last week around the team, around players, coaches, and parents, and nobody even said anything of any of this until first I heard about it was yesterday after a TV station had already been contacted. Again, there have been no reports filed anywhere, university or otherwise. So those are the updates I have, and just trying to figure out a little bit more about where the communication disconnect is from what people thought was sort of horseplay to rising to the level of contacting TV stations to get the story out and calling an attorney. What exactly the attorney is being called for, we don't know. They haven't said they're going to sue, but I don't know. So that's where we're at. Sean, I appreciate it. We do these periodically now. We don't have a set time. It was Monday at 2 for a long time. We don't really have a set time anymore, but we will be doing these, and I'll be giving you guys a little more heads up than a half-hour tweet notice. We'll try and give you guys a little heads up and try and anchor it on a specific day. But for now, keep a lookout for Monday afternoons, but that is sort of tentative at this point.
Yeah, we'll figure something out in terms of maybe more football news down the road, and we'll figure out a way to get that all covered. Once again, appreciate everybody, all their questions, the show for us, and kind of listening to us, just kind of not outright speculating. Well, maybe this could happen. With regards to that.
Yeah, a lot of this is sort of what we're doing in the office anyway, kind of talking through some things and all that kind of stuff. So that's where we stand. Appreciate you guys for being here. And as always, abqjournal.com is where you can find all our coverage. You can also obviously find it on our YouTube page and our X accounts as well. And abqjournal.com/sports if you want to get there a step quicker. And you can also follow all of the great high school coverage that James Yotis just wrapped up a high school football season and did a great job with that. And you get all the coverage there. So appreciate you guys for being here. Appreciate you for your questions and all that good stuff. Richie has one last sign off. Richie, I'll let you sign off with the football season. And it was a very good football season for the Lobos. For people that don't know why a non-bowl berth season and a 5-win season is a good season, you probably haven't followed Lobo football in recent years, but this was a good season after an 0-4 start. And the feeling for now is all pretty good around Lobo football. And who knows? Things can change at any point. But I do think Bronco Mendenhall today saying he has not talked with Utah State was a fairly good sign. So
We'll see what happens.
we'll see what happens. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening.